What if I told you that the moment an empath shifts their energy, every single person around them feels it, whether they understand what's happening or not? Stay with me, because what Carl Jung discovered about the invisible forces between people will completely redefine how you understand empaths and the terrifying power they carry without even knowing it. Carl Jung said that we are not isolated beings. We exist within what he called the collective unconscious, a shared psychological field that connects every human being on a level most people never become aware of. And nowhere is this connection more potent, more electric and more dangerous than in the empath. Here's what most people will never understand about what happens when an empath changes their energy. And trust me, by the end of this, you'll never look at the quiet ones the same way again. According to Carl Jung's research on psychic energy, every individual radiates what he termed libido, not in the way most people think of it, but as pure psychological energy. It flows outward. It attracts. It repels. It shapes every interaction, every relationship, every room you walk into. But here's what Jung discovered about empaths that changes everything. Empaths don't just radiate energy, they regulate the energy of everyone around them. They've been doing it their entire lives without realizing it, calming the anxious friend, absorbing the angry partner's rage, stabilizing the chaotic room just by being present. Jung called this unconscious psychic participation. The empath's energy field acts as an emotional anchor for everyone in their orbit. People don't just enjoy being around empaths, they depend on it, they feed on it. But here's where it gets absolutely terrifying. Carl Jung observed that most empaths operate in what he called an outward flow state. Their energy pours out constantly, directed toward others, consumed by others, depleted by others. The empath gives and gives and gives until there's nothing left, and everyone around them has grown comfortable with this arrangement. They expect it. They feel entitled to it. The narcissist depends on it. The energy vampire survives on it. Listen carefully to what happens when that flow reverses, because this is where the entire dynamic collapses. According to Carl Jung's theory of enantiodromia, the tendency for things to transform into their opposite when pushed to extremes, there comes a moment when the empath's outward flow reaches a breaking point. The energy doesn't just stop flowing outward, it turns inward, it redirects. And when that shift occurs, Jung described something he called psychic withdrawal, and its effects on the surrounding environment are absolutely devastating. The people who depended on the empath's energy suddenly feel the absence, not consciously, not logically. They feel it in their bones. The room that used to feel warm now feels cold. The relationship that felt stable now feels hollow. The narcissist who felt powerful now feels exposed, because the empath was the source, and the source has shifted. But here's what will absolutely blow your mind about the mechanics of this transformation. Carl Jung discovered that psychic energy follows the same laws as physical energy. It cannot be created or destroyed. It can only be redirected. When the empath stops pouring their energy into others and begins channeling it into themselves, something extraordinary happens. Jung called it the activation of the self-archetype. The energy that was scattered across a dozen draining relationships suddenly concentrates into a single point, and that concentration creates what Jung termed psychological magnetism at a level most people have never experienced. The empath doesn't become cold, they become centered. They don't become selfish, they become sovereign. They don't lose their ability to feel. They gain the ability to choose where that feeling goes. And here's the part that will send chills down your spine. According to Carl Jung, when an individual redirects their psychic energy inward, the unconscious responds with what he called compensatory activation. Dreams become vivid. Intuition sharpens to a razor's edge. Synchronicities multiply. The empath begins seeing patterns they were too depleted to notice before. They start recognizing who was feeding off them. They start understanding why certain people resisted their growth. They start seeing the invisible architecture of every relationship they've ever had. Jung said that consciousness expands in direct proportion to the energy invested in self-knowledge, and the empath who has finally turned their extraordinary perception inward becomes something unprecedented. What happens next is what Jung called the constellation of the self, and it changes everything permanently. Carl Jung observed that when someone reclaims their projected energy, the people around them react in predictable and revealing ways. Some panic. They escalate their demands. They manufacture crises. They weaponize guilt. They do anything to restore the old dynamic because the empath's energy was their life support. Others simply disappear. They can't articulate why, but they no longer feel drawn to someone who isn't feeding them. Jung called this the dissolution of psychic projections, and it's the most honest mirror any relationship will ever face. The empath's energy shift doesn't destroy relationships. It reveals which ones were real. But here's where the psychology gets absolutely fascinating. According to Carl Jung's work on individuation, the redirection of psychic energy is not a single event. It's an ongoing process of what he called conscious differentiation. The empath begins to distinguish between their own emotions and the emotions they've been carrying for others. This distinction, simple as it sounds, is revolutionary, because most empaths have never experienced their own emotional baseline. They've been so saturated with other people's feelings that they don't know what their own inner silence sounds like. Jung discovered that when an empath finally experiences this silence, it triggers what he called the numinous experience, a profound encounter with the self that feels almost sacred. They realized they were never broken. They were overloaded. They were never weak. They were carrying weights that were never theirs to hold. And here's the final transformation, and it's what makes the shifted empath absolutely unstoppable. Carl Jung said that the most powerful individuals are not those who dominate others, but those who have mastered the flow of their own psychic energy. The empath who has learned to redirect their energy field operates on a completely different level. They walk into rooms and the atmosphere shifts, not because they're absorbing anymore, but because they're radiating from a place of fullness instead of depletion. They don't chase connections. Connections find them. They don't seek validation. Their presence alone communicates their worth. They don't explain their boundaries. Their energy enforces them before a single word is spoken. Jung called this state psychic autonomy. The individual who no longer leaks energy into every interaction, who no longer absorbs what doesn't belong to them, who has learned to direct their extraordinary sensitivity with precision and purpose. The shifted empath doesn't lose their gift. They master it. And mastery, according to everything Carl Jung discovered about the human psyche, is the difference between being consumed by your nature and becoming the most powerful version of it. The world felt their energy when it was scattered. Now imagine what happens when it's focused. That, according to Jung, is not just personal transformation. It's a force that reshapes every single dynamic the empath touches. And once that energy is shifted, it never goes back. Because the empath has finally learned the most dangerous truth of all. Their energy was never the problem. Where they were sending it was.